I have visions of another life. Please make them stop.
Is that what you really want? To make the visions stop? Or do you want them to come true?
Yes, the skin husks we've been finding around the city, the ones we think are attached to the metahumans. This is now the fourth one.
Well, let's figure out what's happening before there's a fifth.
Yes, sir.
Who are you?
I am Alchemy.
Okay, well, what do you want?
To help people achieve their true potential, such as he has.
And why are you doing this?
Because I'm preparing this world.
Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is just going to be a deep dive into Dr. Alchemy's character from The Flash. Careful for spoilers if you haven't seen episode 2 yet. We'll be talking about episode 2 stuff, so here we go. So let's go over the things that the TV show has done with the character so far, just like based on the evidence that they've given us. We know that he has an underground lair, just like comic book Dr. Alchemy. He's trying to help everyone achieve their true potential. That's like a slightly different version of him from the comics. The comic book version of the character was a more common criminal, someone named Albert Desmond, who was interested in chemistry but found out about the Philosopher's Stone. So it was also called the Alchemist Stone, like the Philosopher's Stone is what it was called for most of the comics. So we'll just refer to it as the Philosopher's Stone. He eventually decides to stop being a criminal and stop using the Philosopher's Stone. But then another identical person pops up named Alvin Desmond. It turns out that there's an evil twin. Later in the comics, they retcon that, and it ends up being a projection of the Philosopher's Stone. So like the stone itself created an evil duplicate of him. So eventually Albert defeated Alvin and reassumed the mantle of Dr. Alchemy. The Philosopher's Stone itself just allows him to transmute matter into anything else. He has a psychic link with the stone, so he can control it from a distance. He doesn't have to be holding it, but that's the first version of Dr. Alchemy, the Albert Desmond. The second version is called Alexander Petrov. He was created by Jeff Johns and actually worked inside the crime lab with Barry. Now, he was called Mr. Element. So there have been versions of Dr. Alchemy that have gone back and forth between those names. Like one version of Dr. Alchemy used the name Mr. Element, the other used the name Dr. Alchemy. So the second version of the character didn't start out as a villain, but eventually grew to hate Barry Allen and took up the mantle of Mr. Element and used something called the Element Gun that allowed him to change the structure of elements. He wore a mask that looks kind of like TV show Dr. Alchemy's mask. So what it seems like is going on is they're combining the first version of the character and the second version of the character in the comics, because I do think that Tom Felton is deeply linked to the Dr. Alchemy character. He's a metahuman specialist. Dr. Alchemy has a particular interest in helping metahumans realize their full potential. So when he finds a person who was a metahuman during Flashpoint, like say Killer Frost or say Wally, he wants to help them achieve their true potential to prepare the Earth. We still don't know what he's preparing the Earth for, and we haven't met Savitar yet, but there are just a couple twists that the Flash could be borrowing from the comics. Now, like when they did Jay Garrick, he ended up being Hunter Zolomon that was just using the name Jay Garrick, and he was Zoom. So Hunter Zolomon was Zoom, so they were true to that origin in the comics, even though they changed some details about his backstory. So what I think they're doing is they are doing like a version of the Albert Desmond Dr. Alchemy, but they're kind of mixing and matching some of his backstory elements, but they're relatively true to the name itself. So the twist I'm expecting is, and like the way they've set up the Julian Albert character, is that he's a totally normal person who's very good at his job. He has a particular interest in metahumans, so he has a really sharp mind, and everybody likes him. So in his speech to Barry, he says he doesn't trust him, so he doesn't like him. I don't like people that I don't trust. I think the twist here is that he will actually be exactly what you see, but he will be linked, via a twist to Dr. Alchemy, who is Tom Felton also, but a different character. So Dr. Alchemy theory number 1 is that Tom Felton is playing both Dr. Alchemy, who's a different character from the Julian Albert character. So you're doing like an Albert Desmond thing, but Alvin Desmond is the evil persona that's wearing the Dr. Alchemy mask. Because like the way they charted the timeline of the episode, unless Julian Albert is like the only Dr. Alchemy and is using Mirror Master to travel around the city really, really fast, then Julian and Dr. Alchemy are two different people. I do kind of feel like they're two different people. I just think that Julian Albert isn't aware of the Dr. Alchemy persona. So you have this situation whereby he could be a split personality or he could be a psychic twin via the Philosopher's Stone in like all this fracturing time that was caused by Barry. I do think that Barry's actions directly led to the creation of Dr. Alchemy, but we don't really know a lot about the Philosopher's Stone and how it's tied to fracturing time in unlocking people's potential, like sort of combining them with their alternate universe selves. Like, okay, this version of you in another timeline in Flashpoint had powers. How do we overwrite that on the current copy? That's the thing we haven't seen yet. We'll probably get to see that in a future episode. So we'll learn how the Philosopher's Stone is involved with that. It probably has something to do with this underground temple in this obelisk here, which makes you think about Savitar. Like, okay, Savitar had an obelisk like that in his castle. So either he's working together with Alchemy, because I do kind of feel like this metal hand here is Savitar now. So either he's working for Savitar or Savitar's working for Dr. Alchemy. But just because Dr. Alchemy speaks with Tobin Bell's voice, don't automatically assume that he's an old man. That's why I think it's a bit of a misdirect with the Tom Felton. So let me know in the comments, do you think that Dr. Alchemy is being played by Tom Felton as like an alternate universe version or an alternate personality, like the Albert Alvin Desmond from the comics? I just feel like what's going to happen by the end of the season is that Tom Felton will continue to be a really big character. I mean, he's a lot of fun. He was actually really good in all the scenes we saw him in, so can't wait to see more from him. Even though he seems abrasive, I think we'll find out that he's not a bad person, and they'll try to save him while getting rid of Dr. Alchemy. It's just that I don't think that this character that Tom Felton's playing, Albert Desmond, is the actual villain. I think he's exactly what you see. Dr. Alchemy is something completely different, even though I think he's also going to be Tom Felton when you rip the mask off. So they are doing a lot of comic book stuff, but they do like to have fun with the way they do backstory. So just expect some changes from Dr. Alchemy comic book backstory. But give me all your Dr. Alchemy theories in the comments. I feel like they're combining a couple versions of the character, but the big twist is something from classic Albert Alvin Desmond, Dr. Alchemy. So new episode of Arrow tonight, they're debuting the Artemis character as well as the rest of the new team. Oliver's basically going to be kicking the shit out of them like the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket. So I'll post that video after the episode airs. Be sure to subscribe to get it. There is a new round of the giveaway that's going on right now, the DC giveaway. And there was a new episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't know if I'm going to do a video for it, but I do need to wrap up the rest of my Luke Cage, so I might talk about Ghost Rider stuff in that Luke Cage video, because they did confirm a few Ghost Rider comic book things. And they finally revealed what Mira is going to look like in the Aquaman movie in Justice League. She'll be like a small part of Justice League, like very, very small, but obviously big part of the Aquaman movie. So I'll do a video for that after I do Arrow, so that'll post tomorrow morning. While you guys wait for that to post, you can click here for my Flash Episode 2 video, and you can click here for that Justice League behind the scenes trailer. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.